This is the Bulls Chat podcast. I am Joe Malone, and with me, the head coach, the general manager of the North Iowa Bulls, Todd Sanden, as we're set up in the film room. I don't get in this room very often here for the Bulls facility.
Yeah, we're in here every day watching video and getting guys ready for practice and games.
Well, we're going to go over some of the games so far. 10 games into the season, the Bulls sit 8-2. The Bulls sit in first place in the division. I mean, you got to like the way this is going so far.
You know, hopefully we just keep sustaining this. I realize you're not going to win 8 out of 10 games every 10 game set you play, but the kids have been great. Defensively, we've been playing well, and obviously we've been getting some pretty good goaltending as well.
Yeah. First off, winning close games, winning shootouts, 2-0 when it goes to the shootout. Now, this was not the way it was going last year, and so I mean, you got to be especially happy about that.
Yeah, you know, when you look at, we lost 10 games last year in overtime or a shootout, and if you win half of those games, you're in the playoffs. So we're really excited about being 2-0 in shootouts and just having the opportunity to win those close games. And really, with the experience of our group now, they're not getting rattled throughout the game. So we have been able to win some of the close games. And again, I think you look at, it's a veteran experience of kids who played a lot last year, and then getting some pretty stellar goaltending from Eric Chafe and Mitchell Day.
Yeah, and talking about Chafe and Day, both of them are below 2 goals against average, and that's got to give you some quiet or loud confidence when you're on the ice, knowing that these guys they're hot right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, all you ask of your goaltenders is just that they give you a chance to win games, and both of these guys have. Obviously, Chafe opened up with 2 shutouts back-to-back and made it deep into the third game, almost had another shutout. So these guys are really providing us opportunities to stay in games and just win close games.
Now, on the offensive side of things, you got Hartley, you got Mexico, you got Dombrowski, all averaging point per game or more. It's nice to have, you know, a trio, if not more. And I mean, there's other guys that are definitely contributing, but just on the top 3, having options.
Yeah, and you look at Byron. Like, Byron was basically a 20-goal scorer for us last year. He would admittedly probably tell you he wanted a better start at the showcase, but he's been on fire lately. And I knew after he got the first one, it was just a matter of time to get that first one out of the way, and then he'd probably be popping. Looking at Mexico too, with him on that line with Max Scott and Byron, like, Mex is just a hard-working, hard-nosed, gritty forward that who's really worked a lot on his game defensively, which I think that's part of the experience and veteran leadership that we're seeing in those guys. But that line specifically has been our first line since the start of the year. We're not tweaking anything there. And you look at Dombrowski playing with Caden Casey and Eli Miller, a couple of young Minnesota high school kids that Dahmer's able to have the production he's having with some younger players. And obviously those kids are good players, but like, he's just so reliable and responsible, and we like to see him having the offensive presence that he's having.
Now, you bring up Caden Casey. That's a name that kind of jumped out at me because he's showing up on the score sheet. He's showing up in the lineup. How well are some of these new players coming in and getting accustomed to the Bulls?
I think those kids have done a great job, and obviously they're some of the younger players in our group playing on the second line with him and Eli Miller. They've really worked their way into it very quickly, which would lead you to believe that they're very skilled and talented players, which they are. But you look at that, and those guys are offensively productive too. We use Eli Miller a ton on the PK with his speed and active stick. So you're looking at those young guys too that are making an impact in our roster.
Next up, it is a home. You get to be at home. No hotels, no bus trips, nothing like that. Minot coming to Mason City to take on the Bulls Friday and Saturday night. Now, Minot responsible for one of the L's on the Bulls score sheet. How do you match up against them this time around?
Well, I think you look at that was coming out of the showcase. Teams are getting down in numbers. We split up there on the road. It's so early that it's hard to tell what the matchups really are. Obviously, they'll probably have a little bit of different personnel. Like, we've gone down in numbers too. So I think for this series, as early as it is, you probably focus more on yourself than you do the other team. But we know they're a good team. They've nipped us once already. So just making sure that we do all the video work that we need to do to focus on how to stop or exploit things that they'll let us get to.
Now, the last home game that fans got to see was against the Austin Bruins. That was one where it was all over the place. Bulls early lead. Austin fights back for a lead. Bulls take the lead. Austin ties it up, goes into a shootout. You'd probably rather see like a nice 3-1 win or something, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think definitely. But when you look back on even last year, like we were close to a playoff spot, the Central Division, it's a battle every night, and games can change in the game. So you really have to pay attention to detail and make sure that you're good in all 3 zones of the rink.
Now, from a fan's perspective, it was a fun game to watch.
I'm sure it was. The coaches, not so much.
Well, good luck against Minot, and we'll see you here at the rink Friday and Saturday night.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
That is the head coach, general manager of the North Iowa Bulls, Todd Sanden, on the Bulls Chat podcast.